Good morning and welcome to our 14th week of Q quarantine. Um, I would like to thank everyone who are here, who joined us and who are with us in this live stream. And I would like also to greet all the fathers, wherever you are, happy Father's Day. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being part of this particular live stream worship. Also, I would like to thank all of those sharers and subscribers for all our videos. Nagpapasalamat po ako ng malaki sa lahat ng mga kapatiran, sa lahat ng mga individuals who would take some time na maliban sa panunood, sinishare nila sa kanilang mga posts. Ang iba ginagamit sa mga Bible studies, ang iba ginagamit para makapagturo. And I have never thought that this ministry could grow that. Hindi ko sukat akalain na ang iniisip natin that just for the family of Christ in Parañaque and just to address a particular need because of the quarantine, I have had a lot of ministry partners and you are my ministry partners. Thank you so much. Continue to pray for this ministry and continue to support this ministry. Please subscribe from Cynthia's channel. Okay? Throughout, I've been preaching for so many years now. And each year, each Father's Day, I have always tried to come up with something original, come out with something that is not a rerun. So, this year, I tried so hard because I know I will be talking to a lot of people, addressing a lot of audience. So, I was really trying to look for ideal father, for a role model as a father. An ideal father or a role model father for me, a father that is based not on abstract or not on theories and sayings, not on principles or teachings based from this and that. You can have a lot of those from YouTube and you can have a lot of those from the internet. But I was really looking for something that is in flesh, something that is visible, tangible, and real. And I really wanted to go back and look for the particulars. What have they done? What kind of fathering style, if that could be okay to use, okay? See, father's roles and the ideals of being a father is always defined by society. And it is a social construct. If this be the trend, so fathers act that way. Kaya nga nagkakaroon tayo ng different styles and different models in every generation. If you could remember, ang lahat-lahat sa atin, especially for us na mga Filipinos, ang fathering style ng Spanish influence ay napaka-stricto. Aminin po natin yan. Pagka sabihin mo, Kastila yung lolo ko, o alam na kaagad-agad natin, napaka-stricto nito. And ang kanilang salita, hindi mo mababali talaga. Then comes another colonizer, the Americans. The American influence in fathering, in this style of how fathers are, is much forbearing. Pinapayagan ka nilang mag-explore, hindi gaanong stricto, pinapayagan ka lang sumagot one way or the other. Kaya nga, when we compare from generation to generation, 1940s pababa, we call them matures. And then we have the boomers of 1960s. Okay, hanggang 1965, from 40s to 65, those are the baby boomers. The Generation X, and then the millennials, na naging problema natin, how to deal with the millennials. Much more so with the Generation Zs. As we could see it by now, nakikita natin that fatherhood or yung pagiging tatay, how a father reacts and how a father acts, ay nag-i-evolve. And it will keep on evolving. So, dati-rate, I even tried looking for it, and I even tried looking for some YouTube and some literatures. I grew up 60s and 70s that fathers are the sole authority sa loob ng pamamahay. Baskat na sinabi ni tatay, bakit? Wala kang karapatan sabing, hindi, it's unfair. Sila ang sole authority. Whatever they say, whatever they will tell you, walang questions, no ifs and buts. Basta sumunod ka na lang. That's a sole authority. Kasi minana yan sa mga Kastila. Minana yan sa mga lolo, sa mga nauna sa kanila kasi ganun nga pinalaki. In fact, yung mga lolo at yung mga grandfathers natin at sa mga tatay natin, hindi ka nga makasagot at wala kang karapatan. Truth is, kahit sa sarili mong kurso, kahit sa sarili mong gustong kunin, sila ang magdidirekta ng buhay mo. They are the sole authority. They are the dominant figure in the family. At madali para sa kanila na sasabihin, o sige, ayaw mo din lang sumunod, itatakwil kita. And these things are nag-evolve. The following ones is that they are, during those times, the provider. Sila yung counselor. Yet 60s, 70s, during the Second World War ng 40s, 60s and 70s, Vietnam War, kung saan nababago na ng nababago. Paglabas ng mga hippies, paglabas ng freedom of expression, paglabas ng lahat-lahat ng mga to, nagbago din. And then, not only they become provider, they become counselors. At itong nangyari, they became friends and buddies ng kanilang mga anak. So, you can read a lot of this, even in the American setting. There have been a lot of posts from the Facebook saying, the problem that I had is that I was raised that my dad is this, and because of this trend that fathers become friends, nasira na. They were right in saying familiarity breeds contempt. Tama pala yun. Pagka masyadong familiar, then contempt follows. Yet, fathers, yung pagiging houseband, not only as a husband, but a houseband, a glue in the family, continues to be a houseband. Kaya nga tama yung kasabihan natin, ang mga tatay ang haligi ng pamilya at hindi dapat inaanay ang haligi na yan. Dapat matibay ang haligi na yan. Fathers continue to become the house bond, the glue. Yet sa generation naman comes millennials. The fathers are no longer treated as sole authorities, dominant figures in the family. Nangyayari sa mga tatay ay house bond servant yata. Kailangan na they serve the wife, the children, and the grandchildren. Kaya nga, may mga kasabihan, happy life is happy wife. Tapos, pagdating sa mga anak, they provide for the children also. And they become not only friends and buddies for the children, counselor and providers for their children also. So, nangyayari that, I think Bob Dylan is right. And I read the lyrics of this song prior to coming out with this thing. The times they are changing. Wherein Bob Dylan, so much so ahead of his time, really told us things in there, even mothers, fathers, and address even those in the government, the counselors, the senators. The times they are changing. Oh, we have to deal with the millennials and the Generation Zs. Because of the concept of globalization, the term globalization, into this contemporary world, globalization concepts is that there is no defining barriers and borders. Walang magbabawal sa'yo, walang makikitang pagitan. There is no such thing as barrier, and there is no such thing as borders. And we all become culture adaptive because of globalization concept. And the self-entitlement of every individual na nag-umpisa sa mga millennials being carried by the Generation Z, na mayroon silang bosses in almost everything. So you can read them. You can read their posts. They even want to dictate what should be done in our community, in our society. Wherein noong muna mga panahon, wala kang karapatan, bata ka pa, matuto ka muna. Magpasakop. But that is happening. Look at this. If in case hindi kayo aware of this globalization, no defining borders and barriers, the subtle means of making us adapt to that, succumb to that, magpasakop sa mga bagay-bagay na yan, yung mga bagong apps. Pagdating sa sex, or sa kasarian, sa gender, yan ang gusto nila ngayon, wala nang kaibahan. The truth is, they even question if God is a He. If God is a mother, hindi father. Tingnan nyo ngayon, lahat na halos ako natatakot eh. Pagka binuksan ko ang cellphone ko or ang Facebook ko, hindi ko na alam kung lalaki o babae yung kaibigan ko. Kasi naging babae si lalaki at si lalaki naging babae. Those are subtle ways of saying, it doesn't matter. Walang kaibahan ang lalaki sa babae. Walang kaibahan ang nanay sa tatay. Walang kaibahan. Anything is. Walang defining border. The second one, yung perceptions. Walang tinatawag na tama, mali. Walang tinatawag na maganda, pangit. Why? Because of these filters. Ang pangit, pinapaganda. Ang baganda, pinapapangit. And that is being acceptable. Those are subtle means through apps. At pagka hindi tayo nagdahan-dahan at hindi natin mailagay ng tama, where do we stand in all of this? Mabuti na lang hindi natuloy din yung isang bill. Wherein, ang bata magde-decide when he gets old na babae pala siya or lalaki pala siya. But we need to respect that. Yung gender equality na yan. Yet for us, this time, times they are changing. Either you adapt, maalala niyo yung mga dinosaurs, hindi natutong nag-adapt. Naging extinct. Being a father gets harder every day. To father a child is easy, but to raise a child is another story. Napakahirap. Maging tatay ka, napakadali. Pero yung pagpapakatatay mo, raising a child, making him or her the way he should be, maximizing his or her full potentials, napakahirap po. Hindi lang 24/7 yan. Hindi lang 355 to 365. Hindi lang 51 weeks in a year. But that is per minute. See, perceptions. Nagbabago ang lahat ng mga perceptions because of the filters. Because of social constructs. See, when 70s, the hippies, wherein they were shouting for freedom. And when they say freedom, it means no boundaries. Pero a freedom with no boundaries, that is hindi rin tama. There should be and must be an anchor. Mananatili dapat na may tama at may mali. And we are in a situation, or we are in a time wherein dapat na ba tayo mag-push ng panic button? Or we need to go back to the old reliable source or to the owner's manual? And I've done that. I've done for these past few days or 3 weeks, I think, that I did that. I've been looking and been thinking hard. What fathering style, what model to adopt. I've been looking for names in the Bible. And, okay, I'll share you some of those things. There have been father figures and examples in the Bible. And I will be showing you the ups and downs, the positives and the negatives. But, bear with me. I will be giving all of the text. I will be giving you all of these things because it would take so long. Okay? So let's talk about fathers in the Bible. There was this Noah. Noah got drunk and he got himself exposed. That is from Genesis chapter 9 verse 21. How about Lot? Lot offered his 2 daughters to the mob because the mob were asking for the 3 visitors of Lot. And Lot said, here are my 2 daughters who have not been with any man. Do whatever pleases you. What kind of father is that? What example of fathering is that? And then Lot, in chapter 19 verse 36, he fathered his grandchildren because he was drunk. So ano kukuha natin magandang halimbawa doon, ano? Oh, Abraham. Classic. Sasabihin talaga ng mga bata, Abraham tried to kill his own son because he was tested and he tried really to offer Isaac as a sacrifice. So magandang fatherhood ba yon? Magandang fathering style ba yon? Isaac blessed the wrong child. Blessed the second and not the eldest because he was deceived. Let me give you Jacob the deceiver, but was deceived by his children, and he refused to be comforted when he had found out that Joseph was sold, but his son said Joseph must have been killed by wild animals. What about Joshua? Joshua promised that he will offer anyone who will meet him first, and he offered his daughter as sacrifice. Father figures in the Old Testament. Let's move on. There are a lot more. Eli the priests. But Eli had wicked sons. What kind of father is that? Oh, let's talk about Samuel. Samuel being that raised by Eli, raised in the temple from a little boy. Yet Samuel's sons, when they became rulers and they became priests themselves, his sons accepted bribes and perverted justice. Anong uring upbringing ang ginawa ng mga fathers na ito? See, all of these things, I've been wondering, anong makukuha ko from all of them? Oh, and David. David, the man after God's own heart. Bless his heart. What could be his fathering style? Could probably be an ideal fatherhood because he is a man after God's own heart. Could probably be a good role model. Pwede. So, let us take a look, because among all of fathers, I have seen some from David. Here is David's model or style, fathering style. So, I took that one out. I've taken descending order, hindi ascending ang gagamitin natin. Ano? So, if you've got your Bibles, it is marked, so you can write it down, then you can just go and browse it. David, his style is that he fulfills his promises. That's one. When he has promised Uriah's wife, Solomon will become his successor, he really did that. He enthroned Solomon as his successor. And one thing is that he charged Solomon, according to 1 Kings chapter 2, verses 1 down to 12, he said, observe what the Lord requires of you. Not only that, he kept on saying to Solomon, remember this guy, remember, bring everything into remembrance. And here's one thing that I love with David. He said to Solomon, deal according to your wisdom. Deal everything according to your wisdom. And last but not least, in verse 9, he said, you are a man of wisdom, so act according to that. See, David highlights the strength of his child. He highlighted Solomon's strength, and he wanted Solomon to exercise or maximize his full potentials by being this, exercising his wisdom. Next, Adonijah's ambition to become king. Look at this. 1 Kings 1:5. Adonijah was the son of David and Haggith. He was Absalom's younger brother and was very handsome. One day Adonijah started bragging, I'm going to make myself king. So he got some chariots and horses and he hired 50 men as bodyguards. David, look at that highlighted, did not want to hurt his feelings, so he never asked Adonijah why he was doing these things. Or, in some other translations, it says, his father had never at any time displeased him by asking, why have you done that and so? David's style of fathering is that not only does he fulfills his promises, he highlights his son's strengths, he never questions his son's actions. Never, as is evidence with Adonijah. Let's move on. What about Absalom, the first usurper of power? 2 Samuel chapter 18. Look at this. There was this time wherein face-off is imminent. And Absalom was really pressing forward on killing David and his men. So, face-off was inevitable. By this time, in 2 Samuel 18, they decided to face Absalom's army. And here it is written. The soldiers, because David said, I want to go with you. But the soldiers said, no, don't go into battle with us. It won't matter to our enemies if they make us all run away or even if they kill half of us. But you are worth 10,000 of us. It would be better for you to stay in town and send help if we need it. Those are the soldiers' words. And in the presence of them all, David said, all right, if you think I should, then I should not go. Then in a very loud voice, enough for everyone to hear, he said, usurper of power, his firstborn, secondborn I should say, Joab, commander of his army, Abishai, and Ittai. He said, for my sake, be sure that Absalom comes back unharmed. Listen, how could Absalom come back unharmed when he is the one leading the coup, when he is the one leading, pursuing his father David? And David said, don't let anything fall harm on my son Absalom. And he stood there beside the town gate as his army marched out and faced his son. More things up. When the inevitable happened, look at this. The Ethiopian came and said, Your Majesty, today I have good news. The Lord has rescued you from all your enemies. And David asked, is my son Absalom all right? The Ethiopian replied, I wish that all your Majesty's enemies and everyone who tries to harm you would end up like him. David started trembling. Then he went up to the room above the city gate to cry as he went. He kept saying, my son Absalom, my son Absalom. I wish I could have died instead of you, Absalom, my son Absalom. And so Joab went to the house of where David was staying and told him, you have made your soldiers ashamed. Not only did they save your life, they saved your sons and daughters and wives as well. You're more loyal to your enemies than to your friends. What you've done today has shown your officers and soldiers that they don't mean a thing to you. You would be happy if Absalom was still alive, even if the rest of us were dead. Oh, David, he wanted no harm for his son Absalom. And he would gladly take his son's place in death. And the welfare of his children is more important than the lives of his soldiers and his officers. Let me show you one more. Amnon and Tamar. The story of Amnon and Tamar. Amnon is David's eldest son. And he was the firstborn, and he was David's favorite. Now, Tamar is Absalom's sister, and she was very, very beautiful. The thing is, Amnon fell in love with his half-sister, and drove him crazy. So in the end, Amnon raped Tamar. But this is what we could read. When David heard what had happened to Tamar, he was very angry. But Amnon was his oldest son and also his favorite, and David would not do anything to make Amnon unhappy. Yun ang pagkakamali ni David. Not only did he play favorite, kundi he failed to correct his eldest. Wala siyang kakayahan na ituwid yung kanyang paborito. That is one thing that we could find from David. Yan ang isang mali ni David. Oh, how about Uriah? Uriah's wife, Bathsheba. He was told, sikreto, walang nakakaalam, that he took Bathsheba and he killed Uriah. But God said, what you did was in secret, but I will do this in the open for everyone in Israel to see. Then Nathan, after Nathan said, you are the man, ikaw yung guilty, sir. The Lord made David's young son very sick. And this is a wonderful narrative. So nung nagkaroon ng sakit yung anak ni Bathsheba, they were all wondering, bakit ang mahal na hari nag-aayuno para sa anak ni Bathsheba? Hindi nila alam na ang anak ni Bathsheba ay anak talaga ni David sa pagkakasala. And this time, harap-harapan na. David, verses said, so David went without eating to show his sorrow, and he begged God to make the boy well. David would not sleep on his bed, but spent each night lying on the floor, begging for God. His officials stood beside him and tried to talk to him in getting up, but he would not get up or eat with them. Then after the child had been sick for 7 days, 7 araw, so 7 gabi, 7 days din na hindi kumain si David, the child died. But the officials were afraid to tell David. They said to each other, even when the boy was alive, David wouldn't listen to us. How can we tell him his son is dead? He might do something terrible. Bihirang mga advisors ito, no? Pinapangunahan. Ano, akala nyo walang common sense si David? He might do something terrible. Very protective sila. So, we move on. David got up off the floor. Verse 19, David noticed his servants whispering, and he knew the boy dead. Did my son die? He asked his servants. Yes, he did, they answered. David got off the floor, he took a bath, combed his hair, and dressed. He went into the Lord's tent and worshipped. Then he went back home. David asked for something to eat, and when his servants brought him some food, he ate. And his officials said, what are you doing? You went without eating and cried for your son while he was alive, but now that he's dead, you're up and eating? And David answered, while he was still alive, I went without food and cried because there was still hope. I said to myself, who knows, maybe the Lord will have pity on me and let the child live. But now that he's dead, why should I go without eating? I can't bring him back. Someday I will join him in death, but he can't return to me. David's model in style of fatherhood or fathering style is that he faced the consequences of his sins publicly, he intercedes for his child, but he praised God for unanswered prayers. And then life goes on. And he said, I can't bring him back, but I will go to him. Today's fathers should and must learn from David that there is no ideal father. There are failures and victories, there are ups and downs, but one thing is, never dwell on the past. We keep on moving. Times they are indeed a changing. We need to adapt or become extinct, but we need to stay focused, anchored on God, because we know that there is no such thing as no quick fix, no easy answers, or no easy method in fatherhood. And we thought, why were these things written? These things were written for our learning. Romans chapter 15 verse 4, whatever written in the past are written for us to learn in every generation. What we have seen so far is that these things are true. Fathers will protect their children. Fathers will highlight their kids' potentials. And fathers will gladly take their kids' place, children's place, even in death. And fathers will continue to intercede for their children's welfare. And fathers will praise God even for unanswered prayers. Fathers will always be the bond, the glue in the family. At ang mga tatay ay mananatiling haligi ng tahanan anuman ang kahihinatnan. Nagpapasalamat ako sa lahat ng mga tatay, sa lahat ng tatay for all generations na patuloy na nagiging gabay, patuloy na nagiging bond o patuloy na nagiging glue na kaangkorahe, anchored deep on the owner's manual, anchored deep upon God. Happy Father's Day po. Patuloy po sana tayong mag-share. Emails natin. Patuloy tayong mag-encourage sa iba. Please share yung iba. Please subscribe to my wife's channel, Cynthia. And may the Lord continue to bless us all. Continue to bless this ministry. May our Lord continue to bless you. Thank you.